You're about to watch what we call an extended clip of the Young Turks, and the reality is it's somewhere in the middle. It's a little longer than our YouTube clips, but it's actually shorter than the whole 2-hour show, which you can get if you're a member. You can get it ad-free, and make sure you catch every news story we do that day. You're gonna love it as a full show. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. All right, welcome to the Young Turks. It's Monday. We've got an excellent show planned for you guys. And Kasparian's here for the first hour. Lots of fantastic stories. Brooke's gonna join me in the second hour. We got amazing stories there as well, including Rudy Giuliani talking about, I mean, is collusion really a crime? What are you doing? What do you, after thousands of we never colluded, now it's like, well, I mean, maybe we did, but is it really a crime?
Top-notch lawyers.
Well, fish stinks from the head down. There's no way that Trump did not direct him to say that, because he is that profoundly stupid. All right, anyway, I do also want to tease one other story from the second hour, and I don't know if Brooke and I'll disagree in parts about it. I don't know, because I didn't talk to her about it yet. It ought to be interesting. It's going to be a ride, this whole show. Jake Tapper goes after Barack Obama. Did he do the right thing or not the right thing? No risk thing. Okay, I have some fairly strong opinions on that. Yeah. Okay, hey, I got a great idea on how you can get the whole show, by the way. tyt.com/join, become a member, get all the show, not all of this show, all of the network shows, and you support home progressives. Have I said anything? I don't think I've said anything. All right, now we have breaking news.
Yes, we do. All right. The Trump administration is considering unilaterally passing additional tax cuts for wealthy. And when I say that they're thinking about doing this unilaterally, I mean it. They're considering completely bypassing Congress to make this happen. Now, they're specifically targeting capital gains tax, which disproportionately benefits the wealthiest people in the country, and here's how they would plan on doing it. Now, this all started at the G20 summit in Argentina. Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, said that his department was studying whether it could use its regulatory power to allow Americans to account for inflation in determining capital gains tax liabilities. The Treasury Department could change the definition of cost for calculating capital gains, allowing taxpayers to adjust the initial value of an asset, such as a home or a share of stock, for inflation when it sells. So let me explain what they mean in an easy way to explain it or understand it. So when you buy a house, let's say in the 1970s, and just for the sake of keeping this argument simple, the house costs $100. But then fast forward to 2018, the house adjusted for inflation, that $100 is really about $300, right? Because inflation makes the price of products go up. So let's say when you sell that house, you sell it for $500, right? And so right now, as the way the tax law is written, you would get taxed on the $400 that you've made. But based on what the Trump administration wants to do, they would actually take inflation into account as if you paid $300 for that house.
Number one, you didn't pay $300 for that house, you paid $100. So number two, this helps almost only the rich. I'll explain the numbers in a second. But it also does not take into account, and if you were sitting there going, well, I mean, look, maybe they should take inflation into account to quote unquote be fair. Wait a minute, do you know the capital gains tax is only 20%? Now, why is that? If you're at the highest bracket, you could pay up to 39% in tax. So, and a lot of middle class Americans pay more than 20%. Capital gains almost only affects the wealthy. So why do the wealthy only get to pay 20% taxes when you have to pay more sometimes if you're middle class, upper middle class, whatever it might be, right? Depending on your brackets. Well, that's because it's fundamentally unfair, because the laws are written by the rich for the rich, because the donors give money to politicians for those things. So on top of it being unfair, tilted towards the rich already, they're like, wait, I think we can do better for the rich. Let's on top of that also now account for inflation on this. By the way, there's a lot of other things that they can account for inflation on that would help the middle class, but whenever you go to do that, they go, oh, that's not practical. We can't afford that. The entitlements. No, inflation, you can't take inflation into account when it comes to average Americans. You can only take it into account when it comes to the really, really rich. So does it really only affect the rich?
Yes.
Here are your 3 amazing numbers. 97% of the benefit of this goes to the top 10%. 97% of the benefit. Okay, then for the top 1%, they get 86% of the benefit. So that, between 10 and 1, it is a little chow part of the pie. But mainly it's for the top 1%, but it gets even better. Actually, over 2/3 of the benefits of this proposal goes to the top 0.1%. So this is literally for millionaires and billionaires. And so they're gonna get almost all of it. So they cannot make the claim that this is for the middle class. No way. No conceivable argument.
But what I found fascinating about all of this is, at this point, the Trump administration and Republicans in general are very well aware that the first round of tax cuts for the rich was not a popular thing to do, right? That's the reason why you're seeing Republicans throughout the country abandoning messaging on tax cuts in their campaigns, because they realize that it's not polling well and people are rejecting it. I mean, Americans aren't stupid. They get their paychecks. They see how much they've saved in taxes. I mean, Paul Ryan was bragging about how this one teacher saved $1.50 a week in her taxes. I mean, that's how incredibly tone deaf and out of touch they are. He had to delete, well, he didn't have to, but he deleted that tweet later because of the backlash that he received. But when it comes to the wealthiest Americans, that's where you see the large numbers that they're saving in taxes. It's gonna cost the country over $3 trillion in 10 years. It's gonna destroy our economy. And they're like, no, we don't care if it's unpopular. We want to do more, and we want to do more unilaterally without Congress getting involved at all.
So that's the overall tax package, right? In the trillions of dollars, as Anna just pointed out. This particular proposal itself, just this small one here, would cost the US government $102 billion over the next decade. Now, whenever anybody proposes something like college for all, which gives your kid the ability to live out the American dream, it actually costs less than this. And they go, oh, it's not practical. How can you give that to the average American? He hasn't donated to my campaign at all. That's not practical. But $102 billion, all of a sudden, ready to give it to the rich right away. So you got $1.50, maybe some of you in your paycheck. The rich are getting $102 billion, let alone the $700 billion in stock buybacks, let alone the trillions of dollars in tax cuts overall, the overwhelming majority of which went to the rich again and again and again. So why? Why are they doing this? 2 very important answers, and then I want to get to how there's 2 talking points that Republicans use that are now banned. They will never ever be allowed to use them, and I hope that we can use the TYT army to push that forward. So why are they doing it now? One, the tariffs are hurting the stock market. And the only metric that Donald Trump and the wealthy care about is the stock market, because that's where most of their money is, so especially for the wealthy donors. But Trump looks at it as a scoring card, like a ratings, and when he was on TV. So as the tariffs are hurting the market, he's like, oh, I know a good way to artificially juice the market. I'll give more to the rich again. And then that will increase the stock prices. It might briefly, by the way, I think that it could have an ironic disadvantage here as people go, oh, I can sell now and I pay even less taxes, and there might be a bit of a sell-off. Okay, so unintended consequences for Trump, of course, because that's not surprising. But part of the reason he does that is to run up the score, in a sense, before the midterm elections. He thinks in his mind, even though I don't think it'll help at all. But the second reason is more important. Grover Norquist, who's pushing for this at the Americans for Tax Reform, and all the lobbyists for the wealthy that are pushing for this, which is almost all of them, they get to have a sense this might be their last bite at the apple. Because the Democrats, it looks like, according to the polling, are going to crush the Republicans in the midterm elections. And if that happens, there ain't gonna be no more tax cuts for the top 0.1%. At least not until the Democrats get back in charge and everybody's calmed down, and then they'll go back to cutting taxes for the rich if the corporate Democrats win. But it doesn't look like they're in any appetite to do that with Trump in office and the Republican president. Plus, now you've got real progressives winning, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, et cetera. So the Grover Norquist and the lobbyists and the donors of the world are like, no, rob everything in the store. Don't leave anything on the shelves. We gotta go. This is our last chance. Take everything out. So that's what this is. Brazen. 97% going to the rich. I don't care, take it. Take everything they've got because we're about to get thrown out of office, okay? That's what they're thinking, and that's why they're pushing this right now. I mean, it's gonna be a disaster for them in the midterm elections. A giant extra tax cut for the rich when Anna pointed out the polling that already their earlier tax cut for the rich is polling terribly. So actually the Republicans in Congress, they love it, but they have to say they don't like it because it helps their donors and then they get to say, oh, I didn't vote for it. Oh, the president did it, what could I do? Golly gee, I guess my donors got everything again, but don't blame me. Don't blame me, it doesn't matter, they're gonna lose anyway. So this one last robbery is what this is. So the two talking points that the Republicans are not allowed to say anymore. We care about deficits. No, we're done with that.
That is the funniest talking point because, so on No Filter last week, I did a special on what's going on with deficits. And right-wingers overwhelmingly commented on that video and what they said over and over again, deficits don't really matter that much. I mean, deficits are totally normal and it's okay if we're running up the deficit. Really, is that what you said when there were deficits under Obama? Which, by the way, we criticized Obama's economy quite a bit, but he actually did manage to close the deficit a little bit, right?
He did? No. Look, he was a good steward of the economy. I don't think he was a great leader. That's a different conversation. But all those guys that cried nonstop during the Obama years and the Clinton years, oh, deficit. Well, you handed Obama a giant deficit. That was under George W. Bush. Reagan created a giant deficit, and Trump has now created a giant deficit. Now, look, the most important thing part of that is the Republicans can say anything they want, okay? We need to use the TYT Army and everything else to get the message out to the media. It is not acceptable to repeat Republican talking points that are not rooted in reality at all. So any reporter who writes that the Republicans care about deficits, you should go after, obviously constructively, politically, through dialogue, but you should go after them 100% because they're being biased in favor of Republicans and they have a conservative bias. Second talking point that is not allowed, because it is just not factual, is that the Republicans care about overusing of executive power.
Yeah, right.
That's what they said under Obama. The Bush administration decided, they considered this tax cut as well. And they decided, no, it would be illegal to do this through executive power. Okay, that was a Bush Treasury Department. Illegal to do it, right? And now Trump's like, illegal. I mean, how many laws can I break a day anyway? But put that aside, whether illegal or not, he's like, I'm gonna use unprecedented executive power. So no more crying about executive power. So when Bernie Sanders is president, get out the way, yo, get out the way. Because you just ceded your argument on executive power completely because you broke the record on abusing executive power. Thank you, we appreciate it. We'll see you in 2020.
Yeah. Well, what are the wealthy doing with their tax cuts, with the savings that they've been handed by the Trump administration? We have some new numbers on that, and this is analysis by Politico. So, a Politico review of what the wealthiest earners and what executives are doing with their Trump-era tax cuts reveals record stock buybacks, but more importantly, some behavior around the stock buyback programs and when the executives actually cash out and sell their stocks. So let's give you the details. The review of data disclosed in Securities and Exchange Commission filings shows the executives, who often receive most of their compensation in stock, have been profiting handsomely by selling shares since Trump/corporate tax rates to 21%. That trend is likely to increase as Wall Street's analysts expect buyback activity to accelerate in the coming weeks. So there's gonna be more buyback activity, and we've talked about it quite a bit on the show, but essentially what happens is these executives and these corporations will just buy shares of their stocks rather than investing in their workers, rather than increasing wages. The whole point of these tax cuts, according to the Trump administration, was to create jobs and increase wages. Wages have remained stagnant, and we've seen these stock backs at record numbers. So following the tax cuts, roughly 8% of companies in the S&P 500 mentioned plans to return some of their tax savings to shareholders. Public companies announced more than $600 billion in buybacks in the first half of this year, already toppling the previous annual record. So we have some specific examples for you, and it's unsurprising, but it's also infuriating. So Oracle CEO Safra Catz has sold $250 million worth of shares in her company. Product development head Thomas Kurian sold $85 million. The sales come after the company announced a $12 billion share repurchase.
I'm going to remind you guys what Anna said earlier in the program. Paul Ryan said, well, you got $1.50 in your paycheck to the average worker.
He was bragging about a teacher who saved $1.50 per week in taxes.
That CEO, on the other hand, saved $250 million. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Now, look, that's actually not the money she saved from the tax cuts overall. They took the tax cut money, did these buybacks, that allowed her to sell that amount. She actually has more than that. She has a lot more than that. That's just the amount she sold after the buybacks.
So maybe I'm not understanding this correctly, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But my understanding is these corporations get the tax cuts. They immediately announce these stock buyback programs, right? Like we're gonna buy a bunch of our stocks, artificially inflate the value. And then immediately after doing that, the executives sell their stocks, right? Yeah. Because that's gonna artificially inflate the price, and then they make even more money from the Trump era tax cuts.
Yeah, that's only 100% right. Yeah. And there's actually an excellent example of that. So some of the CEOs, like the CEO of MasterCard, who cashed out $44.4 million in stock, say, no, I cash out every May. Okay, true, fair enough. But number one, you know you're gonna cash out every May, so that's why you send your lobbyists to say, do the tax cuts so I can do buybacks before May, because I know every year in May I cash out. You left that part out, okay? Second of all, a lot of them do not do it yearly, have done it right after the buyback program. Why? Because once you buy back the stock, the price goes up by definition, because you've changed the supply and demand equation. Did your company do anything better to deserve a higher stock price?
Nope.
No. So that is why, by definition, it is artificially inflated. And that is the perfect time to sell. And if you're an insider, of course you're aware of that phenomenon, you understand that concept, so you're like, sell. So, great example from Politico again, AbbVie, they're a pharmaceutical company. First of all, win number one is they brought because of these tax cuts, their effective tax rate down to 9%. Now remember what the original idea was. Now we never believed it, and we told you not to believe it, and we were right again. They said, we're gonna take the corporate tax rate down from 35 to 21, but we're gonna get rid of the loopholes. And we told you, no, they're not. And they didn't get rid of any loopholes. So it's not 21% for companies like AbbVie. Some of them are all the way down to 0 effective tax rate. They kept the loopholes in, so they take advantage of the loopholes. Now their tax rate's 9%. Is your tax rate 9%? I bet you that a great majority of you have tax rates way higher than 9%. But these giant companies making all this money, 9%. Okay, then you go to, what does that do? Well, they hear you got the tax cuts and your tax rate's down to 9, et cetera. So the stock price goes up and you do your buybacks, right? So your stock price goes up to 120 in their case, okay? That's where it peaked. At that point, on February 15th, the company announced a $10 billion stock buyback plan, and that increases their price. February 20th to March 1st, so immediately after that, 8 different executives sold a total of $26.8 million in stocks. Now, afterwards, guess what happened? Their stock dipped all the way back to $90.56 by July 27th. So, hey, we sold at 120 right after we artificially inflated it. We got $27 million between the 8 of us. Could we increase wages? That would be ridiculous. That's for the masses? Why would we care about the masses? Our employees, our employees. No, they got their $27 million, they took it home. Now their stock price is back down to 90.
It's crazy, and what it does to the economy in the long run. I mean, think about the whole picture. The fact that we're losing over $3 trillion in revenue over the next decade because of these tax cuts. The tax cuts have not led to an increase in wages. Wages remain stagnant. We're running up the deficit. We're running up the debt. You have this ridiculous happening because Donald Trump doesn't understand anything about economics. I mean, he's gone bankrupt 6 times himself. Like, why would anyone think he'd make smart decisions on a national level when it comes to our economy? And now you have this situation where you have executives essentially toying with the stock market. Last weekend, Trump did this victory lap regarding the GDP and how it increased by 4.1% in the last quarter, right? You know why it increased 4.1%? 2 factors. First of all, countries that we export our soybeans to, we're like, all right, come on, let's make these trades happen before the tariffs go into effect. So that was one of the main factors. The other factor was consumer spending, which sounds really good. Wow, consumer spending, that must mean that people have some disposable income. But that is not the case. Americans took out more loans, went into more debt to buy products. That's what's really going on. I mean, the economy looks so great on the surface, but under the surface, it is a complete and utter disaster.
So let me give you some of the stats that back that up real quick. And look, I don't often give credit to Politico, but a really good, smart article based on the facts here. Morgan Stanley, another organization I don't normally give credit to, said, what do they mainly use the tax cuts for? For stock buybacks, period, of course. So Politico tracked that 44% of the companies said that they were going to actually give it to reinvest in their companies, so that would create more jobs, higher wages, etc. And they looked to see if they in fact did do that, and they said no, they did not. And did wages grow? Wage growth, as they explained, is sitting at a lackluster 2.7%. Now, if you think, hey, well, at least my wages went up 2.7%. No, they didn't. The consumer prices went up by 2.9% just in June alone. So when you factor in inflation, your wages have gone down while they cashed in billions of dollars. This was never intended for you. It was always intended for, and to give Trump credit here, he might not be the brightest bulb, but he knows what his donors want. He knows what he wants since he's wealthy. He knows what everybody he knows, the elite, the establishment want, which is give me more at the expense of the average American. So that's what he delivered for them. Last one, there's Trim Tabs Investment Research, okay? These are all neutral sources, right? They're just looking and tracking investments. Their conclusion was, corporate America's actions suggest that most of the benefits of the corporate tax cut will flow to investors in general and top corporate executives in particular. And guess who authorized all of the lobbyist money and the donor money going to Republican politicians? Right, corporate executives. It's funny how that money came right back around to them in droves. And we didn't see any of it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that money has no impact, right? Conservatives argue that no, money in politics is not a problem at all.
I'm sorry, the corporate executives were just talking to the politicians, and in return, they got billions of dollars back in talk. Oh no, right, they got paid in cash.
And I just want to remind everyone of the main reason why this is so problematic. Look, I don't begrudge anyone who's wealthy. Awesome, you succeeded, right? But the issue is, the middle class and the working class oftentimes pays more in percentage-wise of their income toward taxes, while the wealthiest people do not. You have years where the top corporations in the country literally pay nothing in federal taxes, right? Sometimes they get a tax rebate, which was the case with Bank of America, Verizon, you get the picture. And this all comes at a cost, and the cost is, oh, we don't have any revenue. Why don't we go ahead and cut entitlements? So basically programs, government programs that the American people have paid into, Social Security, Medicare, look at your paycheck, you'll see exactly how much the federal government taxes you on that. They're gonna cut that just so they can give additional tax breaks to these people.
In fact, they brag about it. Paul Ryan, et cetera, say, oh, we gotta cut right now. We gotta cut for the average American. They're unbelievable. No, but mainstream media keeps staying neutral. You never know what happens, Well, hey, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, I can't really tell. But to be fair, again, Politico of all places doing a really great article on the facts here. Okay, we got to take a break, okay? They said that the tariffs would not really increase your prices. We got news on that. And is Trump going to shut down the government? Look, never take my financial advice because even if I'm right, it's always about the timing. But as I look at all these stories today on the markets, tick, 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 tick. We'll see. All right, we'll be right back. All right, back on the Young Turks. Wesley Miller writes in on YouTube Super Chat. Thank you for using that, and that helps the show. He says, always the same story. Republicans make a mess with the budget and civil rights, and us Dems have to come in and fix it. That is actually, Wesley, part of the battle plan. It was a memo written back in the Nixon era, where they said we should run up the deficits when we're in charge because it helps the economy. And then it'll have the second advantage of having high deficits when a Democrat gets in charge, and then we will blame them for it and make sure they do not help the economy, which will then help us get back into office.
It happens over and over and over again.
But the people that are the most guilty about that is the mainstream media, because they aid and abet that propaganda. They reinforce Republican framing all the time. All right, Brent Acorns writes in on YouTube Super Chat. How's this for a policy idea? Tax on stock sales, starting at 100% and then going down to 10% every quarter. Would that make Reaganomics almost work? And my answer is no. Okay, love you, but that's a terrible idea. But a financial transaction tax is a great idea. That's a really small tax on financial transactions. So the more transactions you make, the more you pay in taxes, which incentivizes you in the right direction rather than speculation. Okay, and so you should look into that. It's a wonderful progressive idea and raises a ton of money, and it only is from people who are trading stocks. So MathFreak71 says, I spent the weekend rewatching last week's shows. Membership has its privileges, waiting for Monday. I know everything in due time, but we need a weekend. Okay, I mean, much love, brother. Wow, you know what should be fun though? I'll suggest something else for you. Thank you for rewatching the shows over the weekend. That's amazing. But the archives have a lot of fun stuff in it. So a suggestion I made on Twitter last week was, so we didn't have Old School, which is the great show that we have for members, and I was like, you should go back to the beginning of Old School and start listening or watching from the beginning. I think you'll love it. I mean, I don't know what kind of trouble we're gonna get ourselves in when I ask you to do that, okay? But anyway, all this is for members, tyt.com/join. You also make this possible, the whole network. All right, real quick, last two ones. R. Taylor 515 says, easy way to fix broken tax laws, wolf-pac.com. Need to get money out of politics and demand that our politicians work for the many and not the few. Totally agreed. By the way, Wolfpack is a wonderful new website. I joined and volunteered through the new system and felt it's smooth, it looks good, so check it out, wolf-pac.com. Last one is, Tannen Casol says, to quote economist Mark Blythe, the Hamptons is not a defensible position. Look, the Hamptons is lovely. We don't have to get rid of the Hamptons, but it's not unfair to ask the richest people in the country to pay their fair share, not an unfair share, a fair share. They pay, a lot of times they're paying less taxes than the average American, and that is fundamentally unfair. All right, let's do the next story. Thank you.
All right. Coca-Cola has announced that it will increase prices for their soft drinks, and this is a direct response to Donald Trump's tariffs. Now, this is fascinating because Coca-Cola happens to be Donald Trump's favorite drink, and they have decided to hike their prices because of this 10% tariff on aluminum, and it's going to obviously make the price of its cans more expensive. So, according to the Labor Department, consumer prices actually rose 2.9% in June from a year earlier, and that's the highest rate in more than 6 years. So in essence, as we all expected, the costs of these tariffs are being transferred on to US consumers. Also, the Beer Institute, a trade group representing beer producers, obviously, estimated that the aluminum tariff would cost brewers about $348 million and could lead to the loss of more than 20,000 jobs in the industry.
It's funny because Wilbur Ross, the Commerce Secretary, literally held up cans of Coke, Budweiser, and Campbell's Soup when they were doing the tariffs and saying, it's only going to increase prices by 0.6 of a cent. And so it's no big deal. They won't actually increase the prices. Oh, look, they increased the prices. Who could have seen that coming? And, are they going to pass it on to the consumer? Oh, I thought the corporations would just eat the extra cost. No, of course, they're going to pass it on to the consumer. And of course, it's more than 0.6 of a cent. So look, at the end of the day, is it really going to affect Donald Trump? No. I don't think he's a billionaire. I think he's been lying about his wealth all the time. But he's going to be able to afford the increase in these essential goods. Look, I happen to be particular to Coke myself, so I find it to be an essential good. You might not, okay, but certainly Campbell's Soup and
right.
all the other things that come in aluminum are what people drink and eat. And so if you're middle class or you're working poor, this is going to hurt you way more,
right.
as usual.
Because inflation continues to grow, wages continue to remain stagnant, consumer debt is at an all-time high. So this trade war and the increase of consumer prices is going to be felt by the middle class and working class.
Yeah, and last thing is the consumer prices went up 2.9% in June alone. So inflation keeps continuing to rise. What does that do? What little wage increase you got, it wipes it out entirely. In fact, you've now lost wages. The ability to purchase things with your wages has gone down, not up. So the wealthy got trillions of dollars in tax cuts, and you got lower wages. You didn't even stay neutral. You lost ground.
Jeez. All right, moving on to some other news. It appears that Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump are in complete disagreement over whether or not Congress is going to fund Trump's wall at the border before making a decision about funding the government, okay? So Mitch McConnell, during a recent radio interview, argued, it's unlikely that we're going to fund the border wall before the midterms. Here's what he had to say.
Is the funding of the border wall going to wait until after the midterm elections?
Probably, and that's something we do have a disagreement on. And
so Homeland Security won't get funded before the midterms?
Probably not, but most of the government will be covered.
So you're not worried about a government shutdown before the midterms?
No, that's not going to happen.
Okay, so a couple
that
days
seems
after.
definitive. Let's hold to see if it's really as definitive as he says.
So a couple days later, Trump said something completely different. Let's take a look at that.
As far as the border is concerned, and personally, if we don't get border security, after many, many years of talk within the United States, I would have no problem doing a shutdown. It's time we had proper border security with a laughing stock of the world.
Okay, can I just jump in and say something about just Trump's whole demeanor and his strategy? His base has decided to stick by his side no matter what. Even if his economic policies are negatively impacting them, they will still remain loyal to him. And so listen to what he just said right there. That he is willing to, go through a complete government shutdown if he doesn't get the funding that he wants for his border wall. And all I could think about when I heard that statement was Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and the fact that they gave away the one and only time they're gonna have leverage in this current political situation. They had the ability, okay, to protect the dreamers when we had our last round of debates in regard to funding the government. But they're like, no, we don't. It's really unpopular to shut the government down. No, we can't do that. We can't fight because they're weak and they don't want to fight. And it makes me so angry. Here, Trump, he's defiant and he's unapologetic. Yeah, I'm going to shut the government down unless I get what I want. Sorry.
Yeah. So the correct answer is it depends. What's the context? So what are you threatening a shutdown over? And can you get what you're looking for? Is the economy in perilous shape, not in perilous shape? There's so many different factors that you have to consider. Now, Trump's biggest strength, and this is about his only strength, is also one of his biggest weaknesses, which is that he sees the world in black and white. It's binary, it's either this or it's that, right? Now that's a huge weakness because idiots see the world that way. In reality, there's dozens of factors that go into almost everything, right? And the fact that the president is one of those idiots is not helpful. But why is it a strength? It's a strength because it leads him to take strong action because he thinks this is the only thing that matters. So I'm gonna go 100% in that direction. And politically, even the perception of strength is really important. In 2004, the voters said they generally did not agree with George W. Bush's direction, but they respected him for his strength. Whereas John Kerry was characterized, rightly or wrongly, as a flip-flopper and a waffler. And the fact that he voted for Bush's Iraq war and then changed his mind about it later didn't help, even though the American people had turned on the Iraq war and they didn't want more of it, but they voted for the guy who was strong instead of the guy who was weak. So Trump comes in and goes, yeah, I told you wall, me get wall, me shut down whole government, right? And his base goes, yes, because it looks like strength. Now, in reality, in the current context, is it strong to do that? Politically, I guess it's strong because you're taking a lot of risk, right? Economically, it's a disaster, and I think politically it will not work. So now the thing is, though, there's actually some chance it will, and I'll tell you why. Because his opponents are so incredibly weak.
Yes.
That there's some chance the Democrats, even though McConnell's on their side, that the Democrats might preemptively throw in the towel.
Yes, yes.
Right?
I mean, I feel like before the negotiations even start, they're gonna be like, okay, so how much did you want for the border wall? You wanted 10 billion? No, we're gonna give you 20. Like that's Democrat 101, and it drives me crazy.
Well, they've offered money for the wall several times now. It's just Trump was greedy and wanted more. And they wanted a tiny bit in return for the Dreamers, et cetera, but Trump wouldn't give that to them either. So is it conceivable? Is it better than half? No. I mean, the Democrats would have to break all records in weakness and stupidity to give Trump what he wants here, because a government shutdown would obviously be blamed on him because he's the only one in favor of it and is not popular and would wreak significant economic damage right before the election. So it's a lose, lose, lose for the Republican Party. McConnell's smart enough to realize that, Trump is not, but never underestimate the Democrats' ability to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. So there is some percentage chance that they will blow this. But overall, they should just let McConnell and Trump fight it out.
Yeah.
And if all you cared about was politics, and that shouldn't be the only thing you care about, but if that's the only thing you cared about, you'd hope that Trump wins, shuts down the government, creates chaos, and obliterates any chance they have left of winning the 2018 elections.
Insane. All right, one more story before we go to break. There's been an uncomfortable ad. It's uncomfortable for me at least, by Representative Ron DeSantis from Florida. I don't want to say too much about it. I want you to also be uncomfortable watching it. So let's just take a look.
Everyone knows my husband, Ron DeSantis, is endorsed by President Trump, but he's also an amazing dad. Ron loves playing with the kids.
Build the wall.
He reads stories.
Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired." I love that part.
He's teaching Madison to talk.
Make America great again.
People say Ron's all Trump, but he is so much more.
Big league. So good.
I just thought you should know.
My husband's a great dad. He teaches our children how to build walls and to hate the others.
Okay, so there's so much I love about that ad. My favorite part is the record-shattering ass-kissing going on in that ad, but I'm gonna get to that at the end. I like how they're teaching their kids a couple of things, as Anna pointed out. You build a wall because the others are scary, okay? Remember, little child, you must fear and hate the others Make sure they're on the other side of the wall, okay? Because they're coming for you. Well, that is how you train a little conservative, right? Fear of the others. But the other part that I found amazing, and which they take for granted, is that Mr. Trump says, you're fired. I love that part. Then there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Like, I know, look, people get fired, it happens. It's not something you should enjoy.
Celebrate, right.
I mean, it should be heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching. But since they're so vicious, they're even, like, it's in the ad, it's his ad. He paid for that ad.
Yeah.
Okay, little baby, let me tell you how fun it is to fire people. Oh God, they're so terrible. Okay, now, what's the whole point of this ad? The point of this ad is, I love Donald Trump. Oh my God. Oh, where's Donald Trump's buttocks? I gotta get in there. I gotta get in there. I gotta kiss it. I gotta do something else. Oh, please, please. And take all my bananas. So the ad starts with.
I didn't think it could get more uncomfortable. But
I did it. I did it. You're welcome. Okay, the ad starts with, everyone knows my husband for loving Donald Trump. And everybody knows how much he supports Donald Trump.
It's embarrassing.
No, they didn't know that. The whole point of the ad is so that they do know that. You're doing the ad so you can say, hey, over here, I love Donald Trump. I love Donald Trump, please, please, please. I'll do anything Donald Trump tells me to do, okay? Later in the ad, he does the big league. Oh, you're so embarrassing.
Did you know that big league is a real word, by the way? It is, but yes.
But of course, as with everything with Trump, sometimes he says big league, and sometimes he says bigly. I don't know if he knows the difference. I don't know. Anyway, but it's an absurd thing that he says. The only thing that was missing from the ad was covfefe. And remember little Johnny or whatever you were, okay, the secret code word, covfefe. It actually meant something and it was really smart. I mean, that's the only way I think that it could get more embarrassing. It was almost like a Sacha Baron Cohen skit, but an actual ad, okay? So this is the state of the Republican Party. I can kiss Donald Trump's ass better than you can. And congratulations.
And it seems as though Trump isn't the only person who is taking Fox News' lead in governing or running campaigns. Fox News has been urging Republican lawmakers to do exactly what you just mentioned, Cenk. Be incredibly complimentary toward Trump and essentially campaign not on issues, not on policy, but on how much they love Trump. Let's give you an example of what Fox and Friends recently said.
Just a finger, I mean, look at the two significant races we've talked about. One was Martha Roby in Alabama. Martha Roby was critical of President Trump as a candidate in 2016. She came around, started supporting the administration ever since, and now the president weighing in, game changer in Alabama, Martha Roby getting the nomination. And then in Georgia, you've got Brian Kemp knocking out Lieutenant Governor Cagle, who was all but a shoo-in until President Trump weighed in and gave his endorsement.
Why is that?
So, well,
because they realize if they move closer to the president, a lot of people are liking some of his policies and things that are happening in this country. And so if you're looking at those numbers and you are running as a Republican for Congress or for Senate, you probably want to associate yourself. I mean, a lot of it depends on where you live and what the local politics are. But in large part, I would say siding with the president on some of these issues might benefit you.
And it's a wake-up call. If you're a candidate out there and you are on the fence, you may want to consider supporting even more aggressively.
88 to 90% support amongst Republicans for this president. If you're running for office and running away from this president in a Republican primary, you're in a bad spot.
Yeah, I don't know anyone who looks more like a frat boy than Hegseth, but put that aside for a second. That's just a fun observation. But it's a rare situation where he's right. In Republican primaries, if you're running away from Trump, you're running away from your career.
That's sad.
And Mark Sanford in South Carolina lost because he tweaked Trump a couple of times. That's it. And he's deeply right wing. He had done all sorts of terrible things. The voters didn't care. They put him back into office. But you said a couple of things that were slightly off about Trump. You're gone. Throw him off the cliff, right? I mean, you want to talk about a witch hunt, right? So any Republican that it doesn't live up Donald Trump's ass is targeted for destruction. So that's why they do these deeply embarrassing ads like this. But the part that they're massively wrong about is general elections. So I know they think, oh, Trump won Florida. Now the guy's polling at 38%. He's a mess. And he's not polling well in almost any of these states. So this whole idea of run towards Trump in the general election, it's going to come back to bite him. It would right now, if things were frozen right now, it would hurt him a lot. Yes, including in Florida. But things are not going to stop now. It appears that there is really, really damaging information about Trump that is going to come out imminently. The Trump team and Giuliani are in absolute panic. You sure you want to run ads talking about big league and everybody knows Ron DeSantis is in love with Donald Trump? In fact, my husband loves Trump more than he loves me. Okay, be careful what you wish for. Those ads might come back at you during the general election.
Yep. All right, let's take a break.
Yeah, when we come back, speaking of coming back at you, oh no, here comes Sacha Baron Cohen again. Thanks for listening to this podcast. You're only halfway through, so hold, stay right here. Just want to remind you, if you want to get all 5 segments of the Young Turks commercial free, these are just 2 of them. Every day we do it. So go to tytnetwork.com/join and you get the whole 5 segments, 2 hours, ad free. Do it now. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. David Nomack writes in on YouTube Super Chat, that Trump dream commercial makes me laugh every time. LOL, it was pretty cute. Those commercials that we produce run during the live stream. This show is live, of course, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern every day. And that is on tyt.com/live. It's on YouTube TV. It's on youtube.com/tyt. You can get in all those places. Members get the show whenever they want, ad-free. That's at tyt.com/join. In fact, Young Nuck 120 writes in on YouTube Super Chat. Been listening every day thanks to a friend. I love you guys. Just waiting for the Android app to become a member. #Liberal News Network. Tick, 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 tick. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, hang in there very soon. Larry Fishman says, let Trump have a stupid racist wish fulfillment, talking about the wall. Then the next Democratic president, if we have another president, that's funny and sad, can knock it down with one of the greatest photo ops of all time.
Yes.
Or you could go to the wall during the 2020 campaign. Oh, this is good. I like this idea. Bring it to some people and go, Mr. Trump, knock down this wall. All right, Mr. Ivory 6 says, Cenk is so right. As a new member to TYT, the video archives are just as exciting as my Netflix subscription. I swear to God, we didn't plant these. Thank you. Shout out to Murder with Friends, so good, he continues. So yes, that's Grace Baldridge's show, it's fantastic. Check out the archives of all the network shows. Home of progressives. Did I mention tyt.com/join? I think I did, right? All right, last one. Lefty Green 75 says, this is on Twitter, I was expecting the show me the buttock soundbite after the DeSantis ad. Oh, you're so right, how did I miss that?
Show me the buttock.
Show me the buttock. And
By the way, I saw that clip for the first time on one of last week's postgame shows, and people seem to enjoy my reaction to it.
Yeah. Oh, I got. All right, we're about to do more of that.
Yeah.
But look, guys. So Lefty Green 75, I got to give you a shirt. Whenever you make a point we should have made, including the soundboard, I got to give you a shirt. So shop tyt.com for all of our fun shirts, including the Vote one, which is a huge seller right now that people really, really love. Okay, what's next, Anna?
All right. Sacha Baron's new show just recently aired the episode where he's interviewing Roy Moore. Now, Roy Moore was the Alabama politician who luckily lost in the Republican primary there. And part of the reason why he lost was because there were numerous women who came forward and alleged that he had sexually assaulted them or in some cases tried to do inappropriate things with them when they were minors. So here's how Sacha Baron Cohen handled the interview. And as you can see, he is dressed as an anti-terror expert, General Iran Murad.
It turns out that sex offenders, and particularly pedophiles, secrete an enzyme 4-DDHT, which is actually detectable. It is 3 times the level of non-perverts. So the phrase sweating like a rapist is actually based on science. So in Israel, they have developed a machine that is used in schools and playgrounds to detect anyone coming in. And if they detect a pedophile, the wand alerts the law enforcement and the schools within a 100-mile radius. It is very, very simple to use. You just switch it on, and because neither of us are sex offenders, then it makes absolutely nothing. You just put it on, you put it nearby. Wait, this is obviously a problem. Hold on. Hold on. It must be faulty. It's malfunctioning. I'm sure it will do the same with the other guy here. Chezi? Yeah. Let me just take it. Sorry, is this your jacket?
Yes.
Did you lend the jacket to somebody else, maybe?
No. I've been married for 33.
Sure.
And never had an accusation of such things.
I am not accusing you at all. This is
well,
not...
then, if this is an instrument, certainly I'm not a pedophile, okay?
No, but the machine is...
Well, I don't know. Maybe Israeli technology hasn't developed properly.
This is 99.8% accurate.
Well,
it is not saying that you are a pedophile, of course not.
I am simply cutting this conversation right now.
No,
Thank you.
Have you been...
Been nice. I support Israel. I don't support this kind of stuff. Thank you.
No, I'm not saying that you're a sex offender.
Okay, this guy's killing it, man. So I'm watching it every week, and believe it or not, all this stuff that we've shown you that is fantastic is not even the best stuff. So I'm gonna explain that in a second. But so the way he set this up is he didn't jump into the pedophile stuff right away. In the longer version in Who's America, which is on Showtime, he sets it up with Roy Moore by talking about security and terrorists and Israeli technology, right? And he knows that if he brings an Israeli security expert, all Republicans are gonna be like, yes, sir, absolutely, sir, what do you need? Yeah, let's talk. And so he lures them all the way in. And then he's like, and we invent this technology about pedophiles. And then you see Roy Moore in that clip, his face like,
no, he's
like, hold up now, hold up.
Maybe it's just my imagination, but I feel like his face got a little sweaty. Like
totally.
as it was beeping, his facial expression alone, I don't know, he looked a little worried. By the way,
I mean, his facial expression read to me.
Show me the batuk.
Okay. By the way, really quick. So Roy Moore told him in that clip, I haven't been accused at all. Which was fascinating because of course he has been accused. I'm just gonna recount all the accusations very quickly. On November 9th of last year, Washington Post reported that 4 women said Moore had pursued them sexually or romantically when they were 18 or younger, and he was in his 30s. One of them said that he touched her sexually when she was only 14 years old. That's obviously below the state's age of consent. Over the next several days, though, a woman accused Moore of sexually assaulting her when she was 16, and 4 more women accused him of sexual misconduct or unwanted overtures. So it seems as though there were more than 0 women who've accused him of sexual assault. So
now the other part that I told you about with the series. First of all, I love the character Eran Morad. But he changes the title every time. It's Captain Eran Morad, then Colonel Eran Morad. This time it was General Eran Morad. Okay, I was like, whoa, okay, you guys getting promoted pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And my favorite part when he goes, okay, yalla, let's go. So then he's equal opportunity, right? I mean, he destroyed this poor art dealer. Oh my God, and look, so he's going, so the people who are great journalists like Ted Koppel was like, yeah, this is nonsense, I'm done with it. Like, didn't bite at all. Bernie Sanders didn't bite at all. It's like, no, that's just not true,
yeah.
Right? But the people who are like stupid do bite. And anyway, he does a liberal professor, okay?
Like he interviews
one of his characters, because there's a bunch of different characters. One of them is a liberal professor who always wears an NPR shirt.
Oh, I've seen it. It's fantastic.
No, when he goes to Arizona and says to them, no, we have a great new project, $385 million we're going to spend in Kingman, Arizona. They're like, yeah, great. It's on a wonderful new mosque. Oh, you got to watch it. You've got to watch it. And he's like, no, it's okay. Well, what would you like as your dream mosque? And they're yelling, we don't want a dream mosque. There ain't no dream mosque. I mean, I cannot possibly do it justice. It's actually better than almost all of these, except.
Show me the batuk.
I mean, that guy broke all records.
I do not know how the show could ever top that state lawmaker from Georgia. How do you top that? The guy took his pants down.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, I had forgotten, and then when I watched the full clip, at the very end, they show him biting a sausage as if it's a penis. They got him to do that on camera. So look, we're not getting paid by Showtime, us getting paid. Okay, support us by being members, tyt.com/join. Okay, so all this is free. It's just a great show. It's called Who's America? It's on Showtime, and Sacha Baron Cohen, genius.
Yes. All right, I actually want to add one quick thing about all of this, because Roy Moore actually released a statement prior to this episode airing, and so he's threatening to sue. But I want to read you just two quick portions of his statement. He said, I did not know Sacha Cohen, or that a Showtime TV series was being planned to embarrass, humiliate, and mock not only Israel, but also religious conservative. This is, by the way that the statement was written. Religious conservative as Sarah Palin, Joe Walsh, and Dick Cheney. He also said, I'm involved in several court cases presently to defend my honor and character against vicious false political attacks by liberals like Cohen. If Showtime airs a defamatory attack on my character, I may very well be involved in another. Well, it seems like you will be involved in another.
Have at it, Hoss. And so, by the way, Sacha Baron Cohen is an Orthodox Jew and is observant. So the whole idea that he's trying to mock Israel is preposterous. No, he's trying to mock you.
Exactly.
So let's just be clear about that. And he didn't go after just right-wingers. He also went after liberals. They just didn't bite as much. They just didn't. I don't know, maybe it's in later episodes, okay? But right now it appears that the conservatives were far more willing to humiliate themselves. That's unsurprising. In that same episode, General Aran Morad, what he gets racists to do while trying to capture illegal Mexicans, as he calls them, oh, that might break the Georgia legislator record for humiliating, including getting them to put on fake plastic vaginas and then to have people feel it. No, he's devastating them. Okay, I feel like at the end of each episode, I get a
show me the batuk.
Okay, we gotta go. All right, second hour, amazing. Giuliani doesn't need Sacha Baron Cohen. He is plenty good at humiliating himself.
Yep.
Okay, I mean, he makes a mess of it. We're gonna talk about that as soon as we return. Thank you, Anna, we'll be right back. Thanks for watching what I hope was a lovely edition of the Young Turks. Now, you know that is 2 of the 5 segments that we do because that's free. We wanna have you support independent media and come watch the whole show that we do every day. That's 5 segments overall, no ads at all. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Come become a member. Thanks for watching either way.